Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host, inspired by his beloved Wednesday, he is going to faff about sounding disinterested for 89 minutes, then try really hard for the last 5 so that he can look disappointed at the end. Dr. Luke Gledall, how are you doing today, Luke?
Very good, Rich. Oh, very good. I like to think I have a little bit more work ethic than the Sheffield Wednesday team at times, but it's tough. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I can identify pretty heavily.
Oh, just the lethargy that we've been treated to this week. The levels of lethargic performance, plumbing new depths, even for Wednesday. But outside of the the part of your brain and life that dedicated to this football team, things are well.
Everything outside of that's not bad, considering we're in a pandemic and everything is going as it is. But Sheffield Wednesday has a little trick, a few tricks up its sleeve to kind of get around these things, doesn't it?
Yeah, I see that smile on your face. we could commission Tegan and Sarah to do a new version of Everything is Awesome, to be Everything is Awesome apart from Sheffield Wednesday, just to kind of, that would be a better summary of life, wouldn't it, generally? Anyway, let's get the show on the road here.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
And the breaking hoo-hoos, the first bit is a match against Stoke, aka all the Wednesday X's. They pitched up with Danny Bart and Captain Fox Morgan and Stephen Fletcher to just add all the chances of the curse of the X hitting Sheffield Wednesday. And we played an unchanged team. So we hadn't played at the weekend. The game against Swansea was obviously called off, but we played the same team that beat Wickham. A luxury not afforded to any of our managers very often this season, the chance to play the same starting 11 2 games running.
And what fools were we, Rich, that we went into Saturday thinking how much we would give for a game of football involving Sheffield Wednesday to be played, and then we've had 2 games that make us think we'd rather we just had more postponements, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's the marked thing from this game. Having had the weekend off, we looked more disjointed, more disinterested. We got tired quicker, like all the things that you'd think, oh great, we should be fresher, we should be right at it. None of those things came to fruition. This was we started off looking jaded, and the sort of drop off at the hour mark in terms of energy levels and performance was absolutely incredible. So having an extra few days off doesn't seem to have had any positive impact on the team, which is a shame.
It never seems to do that with Sheffield Wednesday, does it?
Well, that's the other thing, sort of saying, you think of it as a positive to name the same starting 11 a couple of weeks running, particularly if you've won that previous game. Mm-hmm. But that's not been the case for us that often. More often than not, rewarding the good performance as a manager hasn't paid off, and you tend to get something pretty middling in the next game rather than a continuation of the good form prior. So I think this was just a kind of standard first half Sheffield Wednesday performance by and large. Rhodes, I think the first sort of chance I remember was sort of 12-minute mark, which was Rhodes flicking a volley over the bar after a Bannon cross. Mm-hmm.
I think you're then getting on to, I think the 16th minute, that felt like the real chance for Wednesday in kind of retrospect. Yeah, just a brilliant corner from Barry Bannon. Bannon, who seemingly kind of out of nowhere started delivering some really great corners that game and had some pretty decent free kicks, if I remember correctly. But we just couldn't capitalize on them. And just Bannon just kind of doing an in-swinging corner, the perfect height, whipping it in right in the middle of the box at head height, and Liam Shaw running onto it to thunder one against the bar. And that was really the best that I think we could muster that entire game, I'm going to say.
Do you think this was Bannon showing off his best moves to his lost love in Fletcher? Every one of those corners, him saying, "This could be us, but you play in."
I think that's exactly what happened. Yes.
Mostly half chances for both teams. That was a good effort. It was a good effort. Hit the bar. Mm-hmm. It was sort of it was a good corner, good and sort of taken well. Although the whistle was blown before it hit the bar for some unknown indiscretion, so wouldn't have counted if it had gone in anyway. The first half was so interesting that one of my notes was Urigide born in the Netherlands.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, see? That was the most intriguing thing to happen in the first half of that game, I think.
I really think from that first half, the big thing I took away from this is basically like we think that seemingly there's not a great deal of definition of who the Sheffield Wednesday side is. There hasn't really been a wholesale redefine. And when I was watching that especially, I think for the duration of this, it kind of came back to some of the weak points of Gary Monk and Tony Pulis, of which saying that we're a long ball direct side, but we're bad at it.
This, as it wore on, the bad long ball was maddening in this game.
Mm-hmm. Including, I mean, we've probably mentioned this before, the deceptive height of Tom Lees. Also want to say that, like, as a little piffy side note, like, if we ever want to open a traveling circus, we could have the world's smallest 6-foot man on display in Tom Lees. And I just also want to kind of make a comment about, ex-Wednesday, promotion squad, low knee, Danny Bartz, a player who I remember being, a bit of a tall lad, but it seems like he's mutated since then. Like he is massive.
He's been on those Povey's oatcakes and he's really filled out.
Yeah, the got some protein. I was almost thinking that maybe actually he was doing... Well, actually, to kind of continue this, I had the image of him as Jeff Goldblum in The Fly, and he's managed to, transverse himself, tries to teleport through space and time through his two pods, but a really beefy stack of oatcakes is left in the other one, and he's just mutated. He's really just he's like something out of the video game Rampage, I feel like I want to say. So, yeah, like, I think the direct mentality of basically, I've said this before, like, there is a Wednesday thought process, kind of a process flow diagram I think of, which is basically, did Wednesday win the first ball? Yes and no. And it's usually usually goes to no. And then the question is, is there any chance of us winning the second ball? And that's also... There is a yes and a no, but the yes is very obscured and very small and has a big X through it as well, because it's just not going to happen. We're not going to win those second balls. I don't understand. We're losing the battle up front, and we're definitely losing the battle in midfield. And I found it weird to say that I thought Bannon was one of the better performers of that game, despite the fact he's in the midfield, which just isn't working again. Like, it's always that nature we have with Bannon, that we know what Bannon's qualities are. We know why he's one of our better players. So everything we do is to kind of accommodate and bring in Barry Bannon. But we also kind of identify, I think you've identified before, really good central midfield players in the championship typically do a bit more of their defensive game than Barry Bannon does.
Yeah.
So we're adding all these other cogs to try and make Barry Bannon work, but the other cogs don't work at all. I didn't understand why. I've been really disappointed with seeing Hutchinson further up the pitch in the midfield. I don't think he has the legs for it. I thought it works really well having him at the back of part of a free. I don't understand why we're going away from that. I think the problem is it's just we don't have any great options. Like the other two players, Pelopessi, who's been consistently okay this season, which I think is both is just damning praise.
Yeah.
But also the fact is, the other part of this is Liam Shaw. We've shoehorned him back into the centre mid, and his performances have not been up to the part which made us clamour for us to get him a new contract.
I mean, he's basically not turned up since the cup game, has he? Let's be honest.
Pretty much. And then also we have the factor of that, the giant miss for Sheffield Wednesday, as well as not signing a proper young, mobile defensive midfielder to replace Sam Hutchinson, who we released and then brought back.
Yeah.
His age. And I'm staggered he's playing so many games for Wednesday right now. But I think the pace of his game is a bit lesser at this stage. So not signing defensive midfielder, but also having that giant loss of, action mass becoming traction mass.
Traction mass, yeah. I mean, his journey is incredible. I don't know whether this happens. What we don't have as football fans is we are not fans of several teams generally. If you're a proper football fan, you tend to have one team. Maybe you've got a second team that you've got a kind of soft spot for. But really, this kind of all-encompassing fandom, there's not room for supporting several teams like in the way that we support Sheffield Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't speak to other teams' experiences and perspectives of this, but it's amazing how many players now have had a perfectly good record of appearances. I mean, Luongo was a mainstay for QPR.
Mm-hmm.
He was towards the tail end. He was picked less because of they brought in players that were preferred. But as far as I know, he's never had long injuries like this, and he's racked up 30, 40 games a season, pretty much his whole professional career. Whether it be leading the line as a kind of attacking midfielder or sitting deeper. And when he's been with us, he's been injured more than half the games, I think. Both.
What you say?
These last 2 seasons, he's been missing more than he's been available.
You say 30 and 40. You'd be lucky if you get 13 and 14 appearances this season from him.
Yeah. Which in and of itself is frustrating, but it's even more frustrating when he seems like such a vital kind of ingredient in the mix when he plays.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I think Hutchinson has looked more tired these last 2 games. He looks like a guy that's come off the beach to suddenly play lots of games of football. These last 2 games.
He
I think he was he outperformed expectations the games before that.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it's not a coincidence, as you touched on, that these are games in midfield. He was falling away from the sort of performance needed to be a consistent midfielder. When we last saw him in the team, which was a long time ago now, fully a year ago since he sort of played that position regularly. He's looked better since coming back in defence, but we seem intent on playing Dunkley, even though I don't think he looks fit. I don't think he looks right at the moment, Dunkley. He's come off in both the games this week, looking uncomfortable as well. So it's like we're sort of forcing Dunkley to play in a position to play through an injury.
Mm-hmm.
And by him playing, he can only really play, it seems, Dunkley as the centre of that 3. Because you wouldn't move Lees for him. I do think Lees is still a better defender than Dunkley. So he's taking up Hutch's position in that defence because it didn't work him being the left-hand side of it. It's just a mess. It really is a mess.
It is.
The odd decisions are kind of mounting at this stage. I think the sort of number of strange substitutions that seem to happen every game is sort of baffling. The changes that don't need to be made, the excessive changes when you have to make a change, all these things are starting to take on a bit of a worrying tenor, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And a kind of so-so nothingy first half. As you say, I don't think we have an identity, so I think we end up kind of playing the game we're allowed to play by the opposition, or insistently just lumping the ball to them. Every single one of Stoke's back 4 are over 6 foot. Fox is the smallest of them, and Fox was frequently one of the biggest of our defenders last season. So he's the shortest player in their back 4, and we just constantly, aimlessly, and I mean that in both senses of the words, there was no aiming happening. It was just lumping it forward and hoping for the best. Westwood's kicking is not great at the best of times. I think he had a particularly bad kicking performance.
Yes.
How many kicks don't even make the halfway line as well? That's it was a frustrating watch. It really was, because we had a nothingy sort of first half, and then the second half, once again, we came out like we'd forgotten it was supposed to happen.
I thought that was an interesting comment from you. I mean, we were texting about this midweek, but I don't think it was any great shakes in the first half, to be honest with you.
Well, no, it wasn't, but it was better.
Yeah.
It's a lighter shade of fail in the first half. But it just felt like a goal was coming in terms of the start of that game. I think they did sort of ease up a little bit, Stoke, because their goal came much later than that. But the start of the second half was sort of one chance after another for a little while, and some of that self-inflicted. I thought Lees looked really good there. He blocked quite a lot of things quite heroically. He got himself in positions he made himself awkward to sort of work ground for the attackers.
The thing I thought was interesting was, I don't know, definitely in terms of, I said Bannon was one of the better players. Definitely man of the match for me was Tom Lees. Yeah, really was an absolute beast at the back for us. Really, really maybe batting his eyelashes towards his maybe potential future employers, Stoke City. So I feel like it could be a championship home he could probably go to in future. I thought it was interesting. I know a few people mentioned Urahide being quite good. I thought overall he was okay, but he did drop a couple of bollocks, I must say.
Him and Dunkley seemed intent on giving headaches to Tom Lees, really, at times. It would be good for you to sort of speak on it, Urahide, because I think he got kind of star man on a couple of match reports, but I think I tend more towards your viewpoint, but it'd be interesting to sort of know why you sort of feel that way about him.
There were just two instances where he basically completely let in Stoke on the attack.
Yeah, one was a kind of limp header, wasn't it? That
Yep.
Yeah.
Another one was one where I don't think he contested for the ball very strongly, and then they kind of got loose. And I mean, we were fortunate we didn't concede off either of those two situations, but they were very striking situations.
Yeah, and there was the one for me that stood out from Dunkley was he was sort of decided to go on a bit of a run with it and got caught by Fletcher, and he just didn't seem to have an idea of what he wanted to do. So I don't know why, as a centre back, he was running with the ball with no kind of end game in mind, but there we go. But yeah, Lee stood out because he was the one sort of clearing up after the pair of them.
Yes, exactly.
We had probably our first chance of any note in the second half was the sort of 77th minute, but even that was pretty easy to gather for the goalkeeper, and then it just felt like we were walking towards it. I think I sort of texted you to say, I've watched this boring game over and over. Being a Sheffield Wednesday fan, the only question that remains is this the sort of boring game where we draw 0-0, or the sort of boring game where we let in a goal right at the end? Unfortunately, it was the sort of boring game where we let in a goal right at the end. It was a ball from a very deep position, badly defended by several people. I think that I know Patterson was claiming for a foul. I don't think there was a foul on him. I thought Klukas fairly got up for it.
Yeah.
I don't think he was climbing too much. There may have been some contact, but that's just natural. Bodies touch when you're in the box. You're in close proximity. So Patterson didn't contest that ball. He whether he got a shout from somebody or what, I don't know, or whether he thought he'd win the foul, I don't know, but he didn't go up for it. Tom Lees was in front of him and probably could have contested it, but he seemed to be more bothered about kind of walking arm in arm with Bart out of the situation. And on the top of all that, who I'm going to sort of comedically call a turncoat bastard, Liam Shaw just watched Fletcher saunter into the middle of the box and score the goal. That's a nod to a news story that's coming up, folks. Fletcher, it was always going to be Fletcher, unfortunately.
Yeah. Stoke Samurai.
Stoke Samurai, yes. Showing off the higher quality of hair plug that's available in the potteries to Barry Bannon by not just having longer, more luscious hair than him, but enough to put up into a top knot.
Enough to treat like it's a nuisance on the top of your head.
Yeah. Just gets in my eyes all the time, this. I think Fletcher's from Shrewsbury, isn't he? I don't know if he talks like that at all. We didn't really mount much of a charge to worry them after that. They looked pretty comfortable. We'd made 3 subs by that stage, and we made the last sub after that, didn't we? It was Suter apparently that got up above. It wasn't Klukas, it was Suter that got up above Patterson. Suter is a massive human being. It's got to be said.
Soapy Suter, as we remembered it from More Woolley, and he's grown up to go play for Stoke. So there we go.
So we hand Stoke their first win in 12 games across all competitions. Somehow looked worse for a weekend off.
Mm-hmm.
We had no plan to begin with, no change of plan when things went bad. Bad subs, and we got worse between the halves and faded in the second. So really could not have got much worse. I know we only lost 1-0, but it was a real greatest hits of how things can go wrong within a football match.
Exactly. I mean, I'm going through, after you're mentioning all those pieces, Rich, I'm going through the checklist in front of me and ticking off each piece. Also, I do want to say, Rich, I did love your reference to a lighter shade of pale, Rich. I also want to say that we really did trip the shite fandango.
Hey! So, anything else on the match, or do you want to move on to the other bits of news for the week?
We should probably get on to the match. What do I really want to? I was just going to say, do you reckon Bet365 doesn't work on leap days? Also, I didn't realize they changed the sponsorship. I remember it was the Britannia Stadium, which I really hate when it's a very TalkSport thing where they refer to it as the Britstad, and also the Majewski Stadium would be the Madstad. That's the only place I've ever heard that is TalkSport.
Oh dear.
I know.
That is very TalkSport, isn't it?
It is very TalkSport.
So
I also enjoyed the commentator saying mentioning the player was booked in the book. You can edit this out. This is all tedious.
No, that's good. Nothing gets edited out.
Yes, it does.
It does. Okay, so next up.
Yeah.
Showy, he goe. Bade, he stay. Yay.
What more is there to say about Liam Shaw batting his long, beautiful eyelashes at Glasgow Celtic?
Yeah. So Liam Shaw, just to sort of add an extra shake of salt onto the wound opened by Fletcher scoring the winning goal for Stoke, the final whistle was sort of immediately followed by the breaking news that Liam Shaw had agreed personal terms with Celtic, Glasgow Celtic. What? There's been lots of. I'm trying to think of the nicest word. There's been lots of kind of heat around that announcement. What did you make? What do you make of the announcement? What do you think is sort of? How do you feel about it? I think probably what I'd like to know, Luke.
I love the image of you talking about him putting more salt in the wound. I'd like to think he's at the chippy. He's stolen one of those giant salt shakers, and he's really fervently going at it with just dashing as much salt as he can onto this wound as possible. Because he really does a great deal. I feel, and we can there's probably a link to getting onto the game, which we can pick up later. He seems to really go at it with a very youthful exuberance of really basically pissing off a lot of Wednesdayites with some very poorly timed moments. And I think you can just add this to the book as well. So it's weird with Shaw because he's been in very, very poor form. More on that later, folks, later on in the show. So I don't know whether he's a messiah or whether he's just a very naughty boy, to use the kind of Monty Python reference. So again, it's that whole thing, and there's a more contextual thing. Sure, if he wants to go to Celtic, then I'm sure that's a great opportunity for him. That's fine. It's just that damning indictment of we don't know whether these youth players are any good until they play games. Oh, and then when they actually play games and they're good, that's we should have really signed them to a longer contract, shouldn't we, before this? There's never any vision from Sheffield Wednesday in this regards.
Yeah. So I understand. We sort of talked about this with the supposed bid for the club, and people are so kind of fed up and rightfully angry with Chansiri. I mean, I've likened him to an overgrown, overprivileged child sort of bashing his toys together and maybe needing to find a new hobby because this one's not for him, you know. Chansiri is the Black Country New Road of football chairmanship in that way.
One of the things I also love is basically we've had 2 very torrid weeks and I've seen the numbers to ride on the listenership. And also we've managed to piss off Paddy Jones as well on our Twitter by us slagging off Black Country New Road. So basically, we're also just picking up the salt shaker from Liam Shaw and really going at the wound itself. You know, we seem to just really pick up on that Sheffield Wednesday thing of we might as well just let the world burn. You know, some people we just want to set the world on fire. That's what Rich and I want to do.
I just couldn't resist it. It just popped into my head and it made me chuckle. So I just thought I'd go for it. I don't feel that strongly about the band. It's fine.
We could make this a regular thing, Rich. We could ask whoever still listens to this podcast, whoever our 14 listeners, wants to send in and say something you really, really enjoy, and we will just
What's the thing you like?
So we will basically piss all over it. We'll take some baseball bats and we'll really go at it, basically. You remember that scene in Office Space where they trash the printer with the baseball bats? They take it outside to the park and they kick the shit out of it. We'll do that. We'll do it in slow motion. It'll be soundtracked by some gangster rap.
Sort of dispassionately. You know, we don't hate the thing that you like, but just because we can, we're going to run it into the ground. That's just, we've been broken by life. We're living in end times. Right, but so yeah, as I say, I am no cheerleader for Depjon Chansiri. I think the short-sighted way that we have fallen into this terrible hole financially isn't, you know, it can be laid at no other door than his. And his choice of people to strike out at in that situation, being the fans, I think is despicable. So I'm not sort of cheerleading for Chansiri when I say I don't know how mad I can get at the football club that Liam Shaw has decided to go to Celtic.
I'm just wholeheartedly disappointed. You put an image in my mind, Rich, of you as a cheerleader for Chansiri. I imagine your little top, your little skirts, and your pom-poms as well, and your hair in pigtails, which you're growing out as part of this pandemic, right? So I'm really disappointed that you couldn't give me a little cheer for, you know, Mr. Chansiri.
Financially wasteful. Financially wasteful. Financially wasteful. Financially wasteful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh dear.
I've nearly given myself stitch from laughing at that one, Rich.
But it's the situation as it is. So we talked about, we don't know how good young players are. It does work both ways, loyalty. And I'm actually reminded of, we talked about this in the Sunderland, when we watched the Sunderland documentary, and they had the Josh Maja situation. And, you know, in that case, the club was sort of talking about loyalty to them, but the club aren't going, well, here's a 5-year massive deal. We want you to stay at all costs. And so we don't know how good these players are really until they play. The situation having stopped kind of the standard reserve league sort of setup, we don't really have a good proving ground. Under 23s football is so unrelated to senior football. It's you almost wonder what the point of it is, other than it's a chance to run around, and I suppose it is vaguely competitive. Speaking of under 23s, did you see the clip of Deli Bashiru's awesome goal this week for the under-23s.
It was indeed. I believe the kids call it a thunder bastard, don't they?
It was lovely. But so the situation, I kind of on all sides. We talked about the agent gets to feather his nest almost in every scenario. So all he cares about is getting the most money possible. Liam Shaw, as a young player, is being told by a team that play European football and challenge for their title every single season. We may think Scottish football is in the toilet, but there's still money at those two big clubs. They still have a real huge presence, huge fan bases across the world. They play European football every single season. There's a lot of things to like about going to play at Celtic, and Celtic has become a bit of a talent farm for the Premier League. So there's no shade in going to Celtic. There's only upsides, really. And if Celtic wanted him, we are never going to be in a position to fight with them financially, I don't think. That's just this. Unfortunately, it's just the life. The teams in the Championship do not have as much money as Celtic and Rangers when push comes to shove. So I can understand Liam Shaw's decision. I don't know what we don't know is whether Wednesday made an offer, how much of an effort they've made. We talk about they've let the contract run down, but again, how much choice is in that? Like if I'm Liam Shaw and I believe in myself, before Christmas I was not getting many. Well, what did he play? He played about half his games this season, so he played about 6 or 7 games for Wednesday, a mixture of off the bench and starting. But if he believes in himself and thinks he's like, I'm 20, 21, and I think I'm really, really good, why would I sign a long contract at the team that's not playing me that much?
Yeah.
And same with Barry Bannon and everybody else. Like, I sort of owe it to myself to let my agent test the water as a free agent, because if I can get more money somewhere else, it's only in my interest to let my contract run down. It's not a unilateral decision that the club can make unless they make a stupid, like a silly money sort of offer to a player to let a contract run down.
I know. And then we also, I mean, it's hilarious that Celtic have come in because seemingly I remember before Cameron Dawson signed his massive contracts, he was linked with Rangers and Celtic.
He was. And I think Barry Bannon last contract renewal, not this one, the last one was linked to Celtic as well.
Yeah, I think we're probably in a spot for Celtic to poach talent from. That, it is a smaller pond, but there are a hell of a big fish there, and then that probably kind of, is bigger than a club of ours in our situation and our kind of downside. So I can see why it makes sense for them. I really was irritated by the fact that they asked the Celtic assistant manager, John Kennedy, and he pretty much talked openly. So it is a formality at this point.
Yeah.
It irritates me, the brazenness of, just because so much of this stuff is oh, well, he's someone that we're someone we've looked at, or, we're aware of him.
He can sign a pre-contract with Celtic.
Yeah.
He couldn't do that with another English league club.
Right.
So that's he basically he's got a deal. If he signed a pre-contract, he's got a deal that basically says on the 1st of July I will start my contract. It's all kind of sorted basically.
Yeah.
Officially, that's not allowed to happen in England until I think sort of tail end of March. So even though they can talk to clubs at 6 months, they're not allowed to talk to English clubs at 6 months. It's a bit weird. This is all kind of football managery type stuff. But you could sign somebody from the continent, or you could sign somebody from Scotland now, but you couldn't sign an English player or an English-based player officially. But I think the fact that it's Celtic means, one, they don't have to pay as much compensation as an English club would, and two, he can actually sign. They've officially can have the conversation. It doesn't have to be smoke and mirrors, and we didn't really talk about it, and we don't really know. What did you make? So there was Tony Pulis is one of the people that was sort of spoken to in this, and I do wonder. One of the people that joined under Tony Pulis and then left with him was this person who'd been a scout at Celtic. I don't know whether he's gone back to Celtic. But that, I wonder how much of that link has sort of played.
That's an interesting one.
But Pulis sort of said, "Oh yeah, no, he's a good player. That's why I brought him in." And that felt very much to me like a kind of bitter man. Kind of, again, we're talking about a lot about wounds. Kind of jabbing his thumb in the wound in this case, because it's a chance to get at Wednesday, who I suppose he's made a lot of money out of the club, but might feel a bit hurt about how things worked out in the end. But we then had the positive news that Barry Bannon will be with us for another couple of seasons, which it's nice to know he's committed to the project one way or another. Obviously, he's a player at the tail end of his years in the game, but he's still probably the fittest player we have, one of the quickest players we have, probably runs further than anyone else, and he's very rarely injured. So happy to see him stay on.
I am. I think maybe it's unfair to kind of look at and think it's disappointing as a Wednesday fan that I think we need a very wholesale uprooting and rehaul of the squad, and it's happened, but not quite as much as we'd kind of hoped. Or it's happened, but the problem is we haven't really replaced it with the quality that we've lost. But I don't think we can kind of use that to kind of damn Barry Bannon. I think he's had a slightly underwhelming season. I think we've basically mentioned on this podcast this season that, he hasn't been able to kind of carry this team as much as he's done previously, which is a little bit kind of unfair.
Yeah.
So it is happy. I'm happy for that. It's just disappointing that we have such poor options alongside him. It's also really funny that remembered that time, and he put the thing out in the media, probably through his agent, that he was chomping at the bit to sign a new deal. He's wanting to sign a new deal, but he wanted to see the commitment from the squad, from Sheffield Wednesday, to really bring in some quality in the January transfer window.
Yes.
And I know that I think he really enjoys it here. I'm glad that I think because we've made him captain, I think he's settled. I think the club means a lot to him, which is fantastic. I think he's been a good servant. I think he's done very well for us over the sea. I'd be scared to think what Bannon, what we're like without Bannon, despite the fact that sometimes, even with Bannon, it's still been a touch underwhelming this season. I'm also wondering as well, how much of the kind of timing of this can you kind of put down to with the news that they're scrapping the salary caps for Leagues 1 and Leagues 2?
Yes. He's guaranteed his wage if we go down, which I'm sure is a help, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know what you mean. I think I can't see Bannon staying on as anything but positive. But the overall picture for the squad is kind of, I mean, what are we walking into in the summer? I think somebody laid it out in a thread on House Talk. The players who are left in contract after this season finishes, I mean, we've barely got an 11, I think.
Yeah.
And you're right. That means there's some level, an amount of rebuilding is happening. But we've kind of done the bit where we knock the house down and haven't bothered buying any bricks yet.
Yes. Yeah.
We're kind of clapping our hands and well, it's a good start. It's a good thing to build from there. Foundations are good. I don't know that the foundations are good. That's the only thing. Foundations are mainly rotting, but
you don't know if you can identify any foundations at this point.
No, well, I mean, goalkeeping wise, I know if that's the base we build from, we are immediately on stilts as next season starts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty staggering, the turnaround that will have happened in these 2 seasons, provided we actually sign some blooming players to fill those gaps, and they need to be good enough. Anyway, right, let's talk about the match this weekend. We welcomed Birmingham for the game formerly known as the Monk Derby.
Mm-hmm.
Another team in poor form, Birmingham, seemingly a ship sinking and gushing with water. Lost 6 in a row prior to pitching up at Hillsborough. Or no win in 6, sorry, not lost 6 in a row. And Wednesday, once again, proving their position in this league as the team you want to play if you're in a slump. We made a change after the midweek loss. We went to... I saw this as a 4-3-3. It was a little bit kind of fluid in places. It was never quite clear what was happening on the left wing, I don't think, at any stage during the game. But by and large, I saw it as a 4-3-3 with Dunkley and Lees as the centre-back pairing, Hutchinson in midfield with Shaw and Bannon, and Penny playing left-back. And we saw Trumpy Bum. Windass came back and played mostly on the left side of a 3 up top with Harris and Patterson. Did you have any initial kind of thoughts or feelings on seeing that lineup trot out, Luke?
Again, I'm disappointed with the sight of seeing Hutchinson in the middle of the park again. I'm like, I didn't think he really did a great deal midweek. I don't know why we're sticking with him there. I thought we established that it wasn't working. But again, the problem is there are no other characters.
Yeah.
Like, Pelopessi's not good enough. Well, Pelopessi's okay. I mean, Pelopessi's dropped. That's a comment I said on my notes. I said I'm usually happy to see him benched, but I'm not sure right now. Like, it's that bad. Like, Shaw hasn't been worth kind of, dropping him in there. I mean, to flash forward a bit in the game, I've really staggered that Deli Bashuru came off the bench, even for the last kind of 5-10 minutes, essentially, considering he played.
He's been such a missing person in all
missing person, and he played yesterday in the under-23s as well.
Yeah.
And
he had a good little moment, Deli Bashiru, but Jordan Rhodes stood about 5 feet away from him just watching.
Yeah.
Whilst Bashiru stared into the space behind the fullback that he wanted him to run into. whilst dropping a shoulder and beating 3 men, Deli Bashiru had his eyes fixed on the place he wanted to play the ball.
I didn't know what to think about the defensive starting lineup, like who was at the back. I really don't know about was Penny playing left back? Penny was playing left back, right?
Yes, Penny was playing left back and Palmer right back. I'm pretty.
I'm glad to see Palmer back.
Yeah, but I wondered if we'd stick with that 3. I mean, we've fairly consistently gone with 3 over recent weeks.
Exactly.
I thought that would mean Palmer was the right-sided centre back, but it didn't. Harris was too far upfield for that to be the case. It didn't look comfortable, or it felt confused all the way through. And Hutchinson obviously, he naturally comes back, but he obviously had a job to drop in and become a third centre back at times. And he was needed a couple of times. He had to sort of sweep things up. So the first half, I thought we were probably marginally the better team.
I would agree with that. I thought that was largely the case until probably about the 28-minute mark.
Yeah, 28-minute, yeah.
So
I think I tend to agree, yeah.
We seemed on top, but there wasn't any great invention to create anything of any great matter.
So the most frustrating thing in this game was we seemed to, unlike Stoke, aerially, we seemed to have the beating of Birmingham today. We seemed to get the best of almost every ball in the box, but just didn't ever capitalise on it. Weirdly, it ended up being a game where you'd want Jordan Rhodes playing, having been dropped. It was the sort of game where the ball dropped in their box almost every long throw and ball.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I think I was probably just going to mention probably this thing that you're probably going to pick up on, which is, I think at the 33-minute mark, it was that Patterson throw-in that was touched on, but just nobody was running or looking to exploit that space. So, yeah. And
there was the one that dropped, the 25-minute mark, there was the one that dropped to Bannon at the far post to head, he got a header on target, but it was a rubbish header. But somebody, if it was a Kachunga or Rhodes there, you'd expect them to really challenge the goalkeeper with a header from that position. And I thought there was also it's worth noting, I thought Patterson did some great work the sort of 18th minute to cross the ball in for Tom Lees. Tom Lees had a decent shot in that position. It was a bit kind of easy for the goalkeeper, unfortunately, but.
Well, actually, Rich, I would greatly disagree with you. I thought it was brilliant that what Patterson did to battle for the ball and to then get up and to go after it and to swivel that cross across. That was the most awkward shot from Tom Lees.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the problem. That was always the point. And the hindsight is obviously 2020. Here, especially here, we're king of it here on different gravy. But there were so many situations where we could have I would have at least liked to have seen a player like Rhodes in those positions. Even if he spurned, I don't know, I felt like there was like 4 occasions. Because what was the one with Bannon also nodding it on and Shaw kind of lumping it over the bar as well?
Yeah, there was that as well, wasn't there? Yeah.
Which at the time, I didn't actually make a note about it, so I can't remember exactly when about in the half it was. Because I remember thinking at the time, oh no, the Birmingham player has hassled him or has got something on it. And then when I watched it back, it really struck me that, a better player in that situation would have done something far more with that situation rather than just like a tame kind of leaning backwards, foot on it to guide it over the bar that Shaw did. So I think, definitely for the most part of that first half, we were the better side, apart from, I think, about the 25th, 26 minutes where it seemed to kind of swivel and we really opened up and Birmingham looked to really capitalize on that. And suddenly a game that they were so packed tight to us, they kind of expanded, and then Wednesday didn't seem to really know what to do for a space of about 10, 15 minutes, including some moments where I think John Pearson on the commentary was maybe a bit generous to them. I think they had that corner 26 minute. It was a clashed header. Then it dropped down for Harper for Borough. Sorry, not for Borough, for Brum. Sorry.
They looked like Borough because they were wearing red shirts. And they were managed by Aitor Karanka.
Exactly. And then and they're just underwhelming, underwhelming championship guff. And he just completely miskicked. And that felt like,
He missed his kick, didn't he? He literally sort of just air shotted it. Is that one?
That was that one, yeah. And then
because it looked like the defense and goalkeeper are like, oh crap, here it comes, and
exactly,
yeah.
And then a couple of minutes later, it was a free kick, which I thought was nothing. I thought the referee was really bad today. I thought he really gave
awful.
He gave a lot that was out of nothing. And he seemingly, the only yellow he gave was towards a goalkeeper for Birmingham.
Yeah, I don't remember that one of the centre-backs picked up a card, but I don't remember him getting it. Clark Salter got one 22nd minute, but I can't really remember that happening.
So 28th minute, that was a free kick that I thought was a little bit soft. It was out of nothing. And then
the one? Yeah, sorry, go on.
Really great delivery from the right that I thought. And Gary Gardner for Birmingham headed wide. And that was a huge let-off at that situation. Yeah. That felt like that was the biggest chance. I think that was probably the biggest chance of the game, I'm going to say.
You're probably right. I thought that the two worst decisions from the referee were when Harris was running through a crowd of players on the wing, 3 Birmingham players, beat 2 of them, and the third just clipped his legs from under him, and the ref didn't give it.
Yep.
It was incredible.
Yep.
It was such an obvious foul. And if the ref didn't see it, the linesman should have. And then amazingly, and I suppose this does feed, I hadn't really considered this in the things that happened later, but Shaw's booking on the cusp of half time.
That was nothing.
Was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a foul. It was...
No,
he went for the ball and he won the ball. There was
absolutely nothing in that. I was staggered it made a yellow. It was really, really frustrating.
I don't know that he even made contact with the Birmingham player. He just threw himself on the floor and rolled around.
I also don't know what material Gary Gardner has on this referee, but I'm staggered that he at least didn't pick up at least 1 yellow card. And then actually, I think he should have done enough to have 2 bookings in this game. So he should have been sent off. late on in the game, I must say, but especially in that first half, he should have picked up a yellow for. He did a really cynical pullback on Bannon, and then he just kept limiting the free kick. He just kept hassling Bannon while Bannon was taking the free kick. And
they were time wasting from the get go, weren't they? They were even, they didn't need a goal. It was very Karanka-ish to immediately start wasting time. And that was a big part of, just stopping free kicks happening, standing in front of throw-ins.
But I don't know why it's not booked more often. Referees don't see...
It was a bad ref, wasn't it, though?
It was a bad ref.
He was constantly behind play. He didn't look fit to me.
The only thing that I thought was incredibly explicit was the one with whatever the Birmingham goalkeeper was.
Yes.
Which I've never seen a goalkeeper do that before.
No, never ever. And the other piece of behaviour that similarly, like, why do you even need to do this? Let alone so then doing it, getting away with it was incredible. Right at the death of the game, their sub running across the front of I think it's Penny, who was about to take a throw in.
Yep.
Completely disrupting his rhythm, holding the game up, and then the ref blows the whistle right on time.
Because they wasted a good minute with like Gary Gardner sitting on the ball at the death, right?
Oh, just so annoying. The ref just didn't have a handle on it at all.
No, he did not.
And those games are never helped because it's like they get involved in things they don't need to, those referees. So when a team like Birmingham is just trying to narc and disrupt the flow of the game, all they want to do is spoil and kill rhythm.
Yep.
And you getting embroiled and having chats and things like that helps them. You coming and having a chat and not giving a card, you're like, great. So you've just added 30 seconds to the hold up in play I've just made happen. And I got away scot-free. Brilliant.
Well, that was really funny also for Birmingham because I thought it was a giant error from them. I couldn't believe that they made a substitution on the 89th minute.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's going to add, guys, that's really bad game for a team that's supposed to be doing game management. That's really bad game management. You do that in stoppage time after they've announced how many stoppage time minutes there are.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, they got the 3 points, didn't they? Anyway, should we carry on? Is there anything else? Do you have any other comments from the kind of first half? I think the first half probably had more.
That's it for me for the first half.
I was going to say, actually, one of the best parts of a very dull game of football was probably in the 36th minute. That came from Shaw. There's a Westwood kick, and Shaw deftly took it down kind of on the left in their half. And he took it down his left and then switched to his right and then ran with it. And then he kind of just, I don't know, he didn't really kind of fizz a shot, but he got a touch and then got a corner. We did nothing with the corner, but prior to that, I was going to say that bit of individual skill was really the best thing of the game from a Wednesday perspective. There was a moment on the 31st minute, like Harris was unleashed, but there was a good tackle from Pedersen. I thought that was...
He struggles with Pedersen, doesn't he? I think he struggled against him in the last game. I think Pedersen's bigger than him and can match him for pace, so it's really not the sort of player he likes to play against Harris. And it's telling that the one good cross he played in the whole game came when he switched to the opposite side of the pitch.
Interesting.
Game.
The only other small thing as well, I thought the 40th minute, it felt like a let-off just because I've watched Sheffield Wednesday so often. It's really nice to see. There's going to really be some damning praise here.
This actually is, yes.
It's really nice to see Westwood not concede a penalty in that situation.
Reckless is what it was. He got away with it.
I thought he showed restraint at the moment where we didn't think he would show restraint. That's the way I read it.
He also didn't deal with the situation in any way.
No, he didn't. But
he ran out and then didn't tackle because he was worried about giving away a penalty, and therefore, thankfully, the rest of the team thought, "Oh, great, Westwood's on one," and lined up on the goal line. And thankfully, Liam
that was really good work from Wednesday to get as many players. Like it seemingly, that's all I could look at was just what is Westwood going to just be the criminal of this game already?
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. But then we seemingly had 6 players, and then it was a good block from that header. It was a good block by Palmer as well. But yeah, look, in that situation, we had we had like 3 players on the line.
Yeah, they've seen this happen before. They were as pleased. They were as relieved as you and I were that it wasn't a penalty.
We've worked on this in training.
Normally happens when he runs off his line like that.
It's like a fire drill we've worked on in training, isn't it? Really?
Yes. Yeah.
Let's all meet at the muster point, which is a 6-yard box.
They stood by. Like the resigned and apologetic carer for an elderly person that's going on a racist tirade. I'm sorry, he doesn't really mean it. He's from a different time. No, it's a good job you remembered that, because I was in my notes, but we'd passed over it for the Shaw tackle, so it kind of almost got lost. So that was a big moment, and we were lucky that it didn't amount to much more, and it was good defending that saved us.
Mm-hmm.
So second half started, and then the pivotal incident of the whole game happened pretty soon after. 51st minute, the villainous Liam Shaw, not just a turncoat but a stupid idiot, already on a yellow, although we agree unjustly on a yellow, launched into a tackle in their fullback position. And I'm sure there will be different opinions on this. It's the sort of tackle that people look at and lament, how the game used to be and how it is now. The truth, we have to live in the present reality. We cannot judge the game by, well, in the 1950s we would have been applauding. The fact of the matter is, it is 2021, and referees do not want you to leave the ground with both feet and launch yourself at an opposing player at knee-high level. It's just even if you get the ball, which Liam Shaw did, you are asking the question of the referee. You're putting him in a position to make a decision. You're risking your ongoing presence on the pitch. There's a fact of the matter. It would be annoying anyway, given that he's on a yellow, given that he should have been walking a fine. He should have been in the back of his mind already walking a kind of fine line. That would be annoying anyway. But the fact that it was almost mirror image of the same sort of tackle that got him sent off previously this season made it even more annoying, because it's like this good players learn from this sort of thing. That's what should happen.
Yeah,
you should learn from the fact that tackle got you in trouble before. It's the exact same situation. You've lost the ball and you're annoyed, and you overcommit to the tackle.
Yeah. It's a bit like Liam Shaw said, nice chips. It'd be a shame if someone pissed on them and then oversalted them massively.
I love that. I mean, one of the benefits is I presume that this counts as 2 yellows and not a straight red for violent conduct. So,
I mean, that's
in the next game but one, rather than in 4 games time.
Yeah, though I'd quite like a break from Liam Palmer right now.
Yeah, Liam Shaw. Sorry, but yeah.
Liam Shaw. Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
Right. Easily done. They're so similar.
I know. Such a similar skin tone, isn't there? And also
build.
And one is obviously massively younger and less tattooed than the other one. Anyway,
you're constantly getting your Liams mixed up, and you famously say all Liams look the same to you, don't you, Luke?
I don't see Liam colour.
Liam blind.
Liam blindness. But yeah, so I guess the interesting thing is that that first half yellow was never a yellow.
Yeah.
But in the weird way, it's kind of now we're looking back at this, I'm also a little bit thankful he was on a yellow before, because then it kind of makes the referees because I could see a lot of referees just giving as a straight red.
Yeah, the ref was able to pick the kind of halfway house of, at the very least, this is a yellow, so I'll give the yellow. It's 2 yellows and a red. Yeah.
Exactly. So in a weird way, despite the fact that I'm really irate with Liam Shaw for doing such a thing and ruining this game for Sheffield Wednesday, I also want to say, let's be a bit generous to the referee. I mean, clearly making decisions is a really tough part of his life. So maybe this will help him. Maybe when he goes home tonight and thinks, and then he usually spends the 5 hours of not being able to decide what he's going to have for dinner, and then he just goes home, just goes to bed hungry. Maybe he'll have the balls to decide on beans on toast for himself. Maybe he could have some of these chips that Liam Shaw is pissed on and have it to himself.
Well, he is young enough that he is probably full of piss and vinegar, so maybe you get a bit of a mix.
Lovely.
But this is the thing. I mean, I think it's worth, at some point we should sort of talk about today's incident in line with the news of this week. So since the contract talk has started in earnest, I think Liam Shaw his performances have absolutely dropped off a cliff. And really it amounts to, we had one good performance against a League Two team in the Cup, and then one good performance against Middlesbrough. Other than that, just okay, or kind of rubbish so far. And getting sent off twice in 15 games of senior football is a lot of getting sent off. Who knows what the journey looks like for Liam Shaw? It seems obviously it's not going to involve Sheffield Wednesday for the time being. But I also just don't think it's a given that he's going to become a world beater. There's a lot of rough edges at this point in time, and dealing with them properly is a big part of what makes players progress and move on. But lots and lots of players don't deal with those rough edges, and they are forever just okay.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the next sort of positive moment in the game was actually Wednesday's, where Matt Penny sort of wriggled free on the flank and got a bit of space in the box. He was really wanting to get taken out for a penalty. He sort of dangled a leg in the hope that it's coquettishly dangled his leg in the hope that a Birmingham player might be tempted to give him a kick. But in the absence of that, played a fairly decent sort of, percentage-wise decent cross across the box. He got, made sure the keeper couldn't get it. Unfortunately, we just didn't commit enough bodies into the box. Harris was stood all the way out on the wing still, which ended up in a bit of a argument between the two of them, and it just didn't find Patterson, who was the only player in the box at that time. So this is where I have to make a slight confession and say that I did not see the Birmingham goal, and I still haven't. Maybe I can look it up. Well, maybe Luke, please talk us through the goal whilst I see if Sky Sports have put the highlights up somewhere.
Okay. So I can't remember exactly the Birmingham player who was kind of rifling forward on the left. They had a shot which looked like it was very tame. That was kind of coming into the box, and I'm going to kind of give some real kind of kudos and applause here. I think a real deft touch from Scott Hogan to just get enough on it to just basically guide it past Westwood. So a bit of a sickener. I felt that outside of that, I don't really think I saw a great deal from Birmingham that really made me worried. I think we were kind of worried for the fact that basically, we're playing with 10 men.
Yeah.
I've often heard, the kind of piece that is in football that, 10 men, 10 men teams, work harder sometimes.
Yeah.
But it never happens for Wednesday.
But I would tend to, I don't think that we didn't look markedly worse with 10 men. They did start to, okay, I have seen the goal now. Yeah, good ball in, good touch from Hogan. Not good defending wise.
No, probably not good defending to...
Not good defending.
Not good defending on both pieces. I think Westwood, I can kind of forgive Westwood in a situation. Like, I think it just kind of feels unfortunate, especially as a chance that's kind of created. I mean, that is a rare chance that is coming up with a goal. And I'll probably also attribute that to Birmingham for that situation, because I think Birmingham are very much like us. They're a poor team who can't score goals.
Yes. And when they do score, it tends to be Hogan. He's sort of...
Which I think he's on 6 now. It's very much shades of Callum Patterson as your star striker.
Yes. Oh, definitely. So I was frantically looking on Twitter to try and see the goal. So I managed to see some Birmingham comments, and they were all very, very frustrated. And stop me if you've heard this one before, but they were really, really frustrated that they immediately accepted the fact that they were going to sit on a 1-0, took their wingers off, and just battened down the hatches.
I can't imagine what that's like at all.
Which sets up we know from our experience, it sets up the opposition to give it a right good go, and we eventually managed to muster some level of care and attention and effort, but it took a long, long time to get going.
Mm-hmm.
We made subs by presumably kind of, I don't know, doing some kind of thing where you wear a blindfold and pick names off a piece of paper.
Do you wonder if he threw a dart and a map of, the UK and the closest it was to where that player was from?
Yes. It didn't feel like there was much rhyme or reason to who came off, why people came on, what the plan was. But Dunkley came off for Reach. That was the first change. Dunkley looked pretty... I didn't think he'd had a great game. I didn't think he'd had a terrible game, but he looked pretty uncomfortable once he came off.
He looked pissed as well.
He did. Reach came on and kind of went to left wing first off.
I don't know what the formation was. I couldn't...
And then after about 10 minutes, we changed that again. We brought on Rhodes and Kachunga.
The Dudders from Hooders.
The Dudders from Hooders, exactly. Living up to their famous moniker.
I don't know where my mind was going. I didn't write this down, Rich, but for some reason I imagined Jordan Rhodes in the way that I paint him on this podcast as some kind of the boring James Milner Twitter type thing. Like that kind of mentality. Like, yeah. For some reason in my head, I had him saying, "I like cheese, but it's not as good as milk."
Oh dear!
I don't know where it came from, but there we go.
Well, I think he might have been pondering that conundrum when Deli Pashiru was imploring him to run into some space later. We had a couple of let-offs. The 80th minute, there was a great bit of defending from Palmer to stop Hogan basically scoring from the exact same place where his goal came. And then Harris made a fantastic... Hogan had sort of broken free on the right side of the penalty area. He'd cut it back to the penalty spot, and their player was just weighing up where to hit his shot, and Harris sort of caught up with him and made a really clean tackle in a very dangerous situation. So a couple of good bits of defending. It's worth marking those positives.
Mm-hmm.
Deli Bashiru got on the pitch. I thought he did okay in a couple of moments. I'd like to see him given the opportunity to do the position we've dropped Shaw into.
Yes. Of
being the link between midfield and attack. I'd like to see Deli Bashiru given a try there.
Me too.
And maybe next game is the chance to do that with Shaw out. We almost don't have anybody else in midfield. So almost by necessity, we might have to do it. But we might find that's a good solution. I just like the fact he's got the wherewithal to take a touch and take some time on the ball. He doesn't look terrified for his life when he gets possession.
No.
He's got enough strength and speed to kind of draw in a player and push past them. Breaking lines is what you need to do in those situations, and we don't have enough players that are happy doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we see that he can score the old thunder chuff if given half a chance.
Wanging the old thunder bastard.
Yeah, exactly. The last sort of moment of note in the game, other than the very annoying throw-in interruption that wasn't penalised in any way, the best chance of the game for Wednesday, I think it was Deli Bashiru who played it back to Harris. Harris made a bit of room for himself, played a good deep cross in. Rhodes connected beautifully with it, and it just happened to be a nice height for Etheridge to save. And Etheridge is a good goalkeeper. There's no two ways about it, really. He's a good big goalkeeper. He's caused us issues before. He's not the sort of guy, if you get one shot on target, you're going to score from. He tends to be pretty decent. Needs something special to beat him more often than not. And this was good, but it wasn't good enough. And that's about it.
Do you recall in the 70th minute, I can't remember who did it, but I really want to get a bit of kudos. I thought there was a great break involving Harris, where Harris came forward and he did a 1-2 with someone. I wanted to say Reach, but I don't think it was Reach. Do you remember who that was? It was out on the right, and it was a really long kind of 1-2. He kind of played it in and did like a long run, and it was the most beautiful through ball.
Oh, yes. It was a nice through ball.
I can't remember who did it, and it really irritates me I could never find out who did it. I mean, this would be something I would like to see replayed, but there's never any rhyme or reason for any of the replays for the iFollow production staff. So who knows?
If you really want to punish yourself in the week, you could watch the extended highlights.
I could do. I was going to say prior to that, Harris did a great block on the 85th minute, the 86th minute as well. I wanted to ask, does Bannon's corner count as a shot on target?
I think it has to. It might have been Hutch, by the way. I'm sort of picturing that moment, and it might have been Hutch. Might have. Don't hold my feet to the fire over it, but that's my. I'm picturing it. I'm envisioning it in my mind, and that's who I see playing that ball.
If anyone from iFollow is listening, one thing I'd like to give them as a recommendation is, as a Sheffield Wednesday fan, I'd rather not see as many clips on the sidelines of Thompson with his notepad.
Writing a little note to Bullen like, what the heck do we do now?
And I also really would have liked to have seen Gary Gardner sent off, the time-wasting shitwasp.
That was extraordinary. Yeah. It's so annoying. I do always think with time-wasting, though, if we were better in the game, it wouldn't matter, would it? But we're always in a position where it's really worth time wasting because you've probably got a goal up against us. We probably can't get any momentum going, and it just adds to the frustration of a frustrating day. But I'd love to see it dealt with better, but almost every rule change seems to add to the amount of time wasting you can do. Because all I can see with these, I think safety around head injuries and things like that is something we need to pay much more attention to in football. But the substitution just feels like another type of time wasting you can do to me in the Premier League. That plan just feels like it'll be abused by teams running the clock down. You can see Sam Allardyce rubbing his hands together, reading through the rule. We'll get our 10 penneth worth out of that. So honourable mention, villain of the piece. I think villain of the piece is probably fairly obvious, but
let's go with honourable mentions first, shall we?
Okay.
Honourable mentions. Patterson
plugged away. I was really pleased with Penny. I thought today. I thought Penny put in a good shift. I don't think he let us down defensively at all, really. But going forward, the few moments of quality that we had tended to come through him. There was a nice moment. It didn't really amount to much, but there was a nice moment where he kind of like, we were getting pressed and he chipped it over the two Birmingham men that were coming his way and sort of got to the ball first on the other side. That was really nice. And on another day, something could have come of that cross that he played. He also had a decent effort from outside the box. It was blocked, but he does have unerring accuracy with shooting. It always seems to be on target, which is not a bad trait to have as a player. So he's my I think he's my sort of honourable mention. Mm-hmm. It's got to be Liam Shaw, hasn't it? Really,
it's got to be the future writer of his autobiography, Piss and Vinegar and Way Too Much Salt for Your Chips, Liam Shaw.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go with this because, I mean, it's a difficult nature that it needs to be a mutually beneficial relationship between a young player who wants to develop himself at a football club, but he needs to show some chops. He needs to show what he can do. And I felt like he's doing that. I don't know whether he's completely taken his foot off the gas and now because his future's elsewhere.
Well, we don't know enough about him to know that that's even the case.
We don't know, but we also know. I also don't want to go with the conclusion that, oh, well, he's a Wednesdayite. Therefore, he's come through the academy. He's, you cut him in half and he bleeds blue and white, Wednesday through and through, etc., etc., etc. Like, I think that's kind of lazy, and it's naive to think such things about Liam Shaw. But
definitely.
But I definitely feel that I was going to mention. There's a lot of. I love the talk about Dunkley doing media duties and talking. I'd really like to see like a full media interview with Shea Dunkley, because he's always good value, and he sounds like he's got the right attitude. I think I was disappointed today with Shea Dunkley going off and being in such a sour mood. I mean, he could be disappointed about a number of things, and he's allowed to be sometimes upset, but it's just weird to see that from Shea Dunkley, who's typically come across with his PR and presentation like he seems like a very emotionally intelligent footballer, and he seems like he has the right attitude in spades.
Yeah.
So anyway, but talking about Shea Dunkley I loved him talking, I think, midweek about, the words that you want to put in a youngster's ear, talking about, he was asked about Uzazi Urhidi and like the role that he could have in developing as a football player and, potentially being a consistent footballer at this level. And so he was saying that, you have to limit the words that you say in the young player's ear, because a lot of players, a lot of other players are doing that. They're getting a lot of information. So you have to kind of limit that, what's going in. But I feel right now with Liam Shaw, like someone has turned to him and said at some point, you should study what Mark Viduka did with playing for a new contract.
Yes.
Because it feels like that. It feels like all of my application and talent has gone on 2 or 3 games, 3-4 games of football at the most.
Yeah.
And then now it's decided, now it's settled. His future is elsewhere. I can put my big lanky feet up. My big lanky feet are rested. My arm that is given for rubbing salt dubiously and massively into Sheffield Wednesday wounds, that's still going on. I've got restless arm syndrome. I sound like I'm being very unfair, but I think the thing that's just been so frustrating is contract talk has come up. His performances have been poor. We have seemingly bled to get him into the team, and he's led us down with, I think, 2 decent chances that he's missed in the last 2 games, other clangers he's pulled, and he's just been sent off for a really, really stupid moment, of which he's done this before.
Yeah.
And we said, he's going to learn from this. Or that's the way that you put it in the PR, but seemingly he hasn't learned yet.
No.
So I'm really upset with him.
He was lucky to get one of his very good performances was in the cup against Exeter. He was lucky to get away with one there, if you remember. He didn't even get a card for it, but it was very similar. To be nice, you'd call it full-blooded type of tackle. He seems to, the way he tackles is a bit like Hutch, but not with less intelligence and I suppose less experience as well. But Hutch makes every tackle count in that way. And you can tell that Liam Shaw that's what's in his head, is go for it properly. Don't kind of go for half measures. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, it's picking your moments, and it's knowing when going wholeheartedly might get you into trouble and not going at all. It's picking and choosing the point where you do it is the thing, I think, more often than not. And to be quite frank, Hutch got it wrong a lot of times as well, and either picked up silly bookings or got sent off or injured himself in moments when he was desperately needed for the team. So I think in some ways he is a good role model. He's an intelligent and very gifted player, Sam Hutchinson. But I don't know that that's the bit that I would immediately take on board is the tackling. Yeah, strange one. But I think that the conundrum of young players and what to do with young players, particularly in this situation where the deck is so skewed against Football League teams. The Premier League have forced that to happen. They are perfectly happy for the Championship and League One and League Two to develop players, but they don't want to reward them for that development. And they've held the kind of the legacy payments or whatever they're called over the heads of the Football League to get them to sign up to those latest terms. So working with young footballers, building from an academy is a tricky thing to do. And the hardest thing of it is nobody knows what will happen. Penny burst through and looked like a fantastic player. Maybe now, 2 or 3 years later, we're starting to see the kind of the maturation of him into a first team player. But even now, I'm not totally sold. Mm-hmm. Sean Clare burst onto the scene, had 2 or 3 tremendous games. I mean, that game against Aston Villa, he looked incredible. That was one of the best performances I've seen from a midfielder probably since early doors Giles Coke. If you remember how good Giles Coke was for the first month of the season.
Yes, yeah.
But then he went up to Hearts and sort of gradually seems to have faded away. I think he's at Oxford now, is he?
He's going to learn to Burton Albion from Oxford.
Burton Albion,
yeah,
from Oxford. Okay, but it's not FIFA. It's not Football Manager. Progression is not a nice graph that you tick up. You walk up like stairs. Progression can go up, down. It can stay where it was. From Liam Shaw, we've seen him be part of surprisingly good defensive performances, although whether he was good or not was sometimes was good, sometimes he wasn't that good, sometimes he was kind of being bailed out, sometimes he stood out. In midfield, he looks all right at that position at the peak of the 3, which is a position with less responsibility. Whether you want a 6'4" central midfielder that can't shoot, I don't know. It's probably not top of most teams' wish lists of who they want in that position. I just don't. You can get hyped up, and essentially his good period in the team boils down to he played really well against Exeter and he played really well against Middlesbrough, and he played okay 2 games either side of that. So kind of maybe a 9 out of 10, maybe a 10 out of 10, an 8 out of 10, and a couple of 7s. Everything else has been just okay. And I don't know that he'd be getting in the team if we had other options. I don't know that he's there on merit rather than just being the what's available right now, which might be part of his decision in terms of his future. If he doesn't feel like he's getting picked on merit and he feels like if we sign a couple of midfielders, he wouldn't be there, or if Luongo was fit, he wouldn't be there, then he might see the writing on the wall in a way. Strange position to be in. A disappointing week for the team. Just as a final thought, a final discussion, Luke, mm-hmm. Where are you in your mental relationship with Thompson as manager?
I think it's fine. I wondered with those substitutions when we were 1-0 down, especially that first one, which was that with us Reach. Who did Reach come on for again?
Dunkley, that was it. Yes, that felt a little bit like last ditch. That felt like beginning of the last roll of the dice from Thompson. I mean, the thing is, we've never seen. The thing previous to this is, prior to this week of just complete dreck and tedium, we've never seen 2 losses on the spin from Thompson. We've seen a response after we've lost. Yeah.
So we were kind of hoping that would be today. It wasn't today. It seems like it's fine in this situation, which is worrying that I'm saying it's fine. But it's fine because now who's going to come in? They're not going to have any chance to make any improvements. There was seemingly no money for any additions to make this out. Sam Hutchinson's come back and Andrew Green's come back, who's played a couple of games and then been injured ever since.
Yeah.
So what is a new manager really going to change in this situation?
Well,
And who is Chansiri going to approve and bring in? Because I don't I don't fancy any of his. There could really be a maverick left field foreign appointments, but they've got to get going incredibly quickly. And it's largely, apart from these two games, been kind of better under Thompson. It's been the similar mentality, but there's seemingly been largely, and it's been lacking the last couple of games, but there's been a bit more belief in the talent and ability of the players from Thompson. We're still a long ball direct side, you know?
I know. I think what's starting to grate on me is the needless changes. Well, this now seems like a fixation with Dunkley. Dunkley needs to be there. Sometimes, even if you feel like he's the best centre-back, if he doesn't fit into the system, he might just be the odd one out, and unfortunately that's the case. The best performances we've had defensively were Lee's, Hutch, and Urigide. That worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the second time it was played, it worked as well. Like it's the only time I think we've played the same sort of back line and had good results back to back. And that would be when we beat Preston and Bournemouth back to back. And we've changed it because Dunkley's back. And I don't think he's warranted a place. He looked like an absolute bomb scare when he came on off the bench. And then he started the next game, and he started every game since, and not come off injured, but come off at the hour mark. I don't understand why your first plan is to play a centre-back that can't complete the 90 minutes. Of all the positions on the pitch, you probably want your most reliable players at centre-back, don't you? Goalkeeper and centre-back. Those are positions you don't want to be changing during the match, ideally.
And I didn't think it was
a guy that doesn't look fit.
I thought it was working with the three at the back before as well. Well, apart from a really, really, really bad performance against Millwall.
Yeah.
Which felt kind of freak, really.
Well, that was the worst of Hutch. We absolutely found out that Hutch cannot be cannot be like the left-hand side of that three. That just doesn't work.
But that was the thing as well. We said previously it works with him as the middle centre back.
Hutch being the centre. But if they're insisting on playing Dunkley every game, Hutch can't play that position because I don't think Dunkley can play anywhere else particularly well either. So if Dunkley has to be one of the three, we can't have Hutch as one of the three. It just because I don't know. It's just one of these. Football is generally a simple game that gets overcomplicated by people. And funnily enough, our best performances have been playing a lineup that works and people in positions that work for them. You know, Reach looks best when he's a left winger. Harris looks best when he's a right winger. You know, these are not incredible leaps of logic to make. People are good at playing the positions that they've played all their life. But we've just seem to have got away from that almost every game since. And I don't really know why. We've not been forced to. Injury hasn't forced us to. We've made that ourselves. Anyway, there we go. I think I'm the same boat. I don't know who would come in. I don't know how they would have an impact. We can't sign anybody really. And if we did sign somebody, there's someone that's not played football for a long time, so they wouldn't be ready to go.
Yep. So
yeah, stick with it. Anyway, there we go. We've got another big week ahead in terms of games coming up. We've got Brentford midweek and then Luton after that. Both tricky games in their own way. Brentford are in a bit of bad form, so we'll probably help them turn that round. Luton similarly not in great form. They've lost 4 out of their last 6 and only won once. It's interesting, Luton, because Luton went on quite a spell of good performances around the time we played them last. But they're in the doldrums a little bit. They're just outside of the relegation dogfight, but not by much. So maybe one we should win. One we would be happy with a draw from. At the moment, given the form this week, we'd probably be happy with 2 draws if we could come out with it. But fingers crossed, we get to see a reaction. This has not been a good week, and the performances have been worse than the results, I think, by and large. So on that wonderfully positive note, I think it's time to say cheerio. Are you happy with that, Luke?
Define happy.
Yeah. Can you live with this being the moment that the podcast finishes?
Sure. Like most trauma in my life, I'll learn to deal with it.
Oh, let the callus grow over it. Push it down. I hope everyone at home has a better week than Sheffield Wednesday have had this week, and it would be nice to have the football club we follow be an additive to our lives rather than taking away what little joy we managed to muster up in these strange times. But maybe that will happen next week. Onwards and upwards.
Who knows?
Cheerio, Luke, and cheerio, folks at home.
We'll see you, Rich. Have a good one.